Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's a Tuesday morning. Ayokunmi with you in the studio. Time to get into the world of Business Express on the Smooth Breakfast. Yes, this is where we're going to talk about business issues, bring them to the fore, and just dissect, make sense of them as we get along. Today, we're going to be talking about Nigeria's central bank reintroducing FX retail Dutch auctions. And joining me this morning is my very special guest in the person of David Shaibu. He is an emerging markets fixed income and currency trader at Zedcrest Capital. Very good morning to you, David. Great to have you on Business Express.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me around.
Absolute pleasure. For all our listeners out there, you can be a part of Business Express, as always, by sending your thoughts in to us on WhatsApp on 0809 440 981. 0809 440 981. We're also streaming live on YouTube. You can catch us at Smooth and 981 FM Lagos. All right, David, let's get things started. Let's get this show on the road and begin at the very, very, very beginning specifically because we need some clarity here. And I'll begin by asking you this. What exactly is a retail Dutch auction?
Okay. Uh, let's take a step backward to what a Dutch auction is, before we address what a retail Dutch auction is. So a Dutch auction is a public offering auction kind of structure, right? Where the price of the offering is set after taking all the bids and determining the best price at which the total offering can be sold, right? That's a lot to unpack, but let me break it down a bit further, right?
Please do.
So it's different from a regular auction at, let's say, your trade fair, where maybe a car is being on or is being auctioned, and then um there's a host trying to get people to bid volume. Some bids 500K, another person bids higher than that until they reach a price at which no one is willing to bid. Then that person wins the auction. So that's a competitive form of auction, right? But the dot
Okay.
auction is still competitive, but everyone submits their bid, the amount they are willing to take, and the price they are willing to take it at. And at the end of the auction, um, the body in charge of the auction sees the overall view and determines the best price at which it will go for and sets the price. So that's how a Dutch auction works, right? So a retail Dutch auction, and bringing it back home to the FX environment, just tells us that it's an auction process where the retailers, right, bid for FX in this case, right, through
Okay.
their from the central bank, right? So all retail participants or all market players, right, would typically send in their bids and rate at which they are willing to buy the FX through their banks, right? It's different from a wholesale Dutch auction where it's the banks that just go ahead and bid, and after they win from the central bank, they sell to the retailers or sell to the general public, the corporates, and individuals alike. So that breaks down what a retail Dutch auction is.
Okay, interesting stuff. So from there, I need to take it to this territory and just try to make sense of why was it dropped in the past and why exactly has the current administration decided to pick it back up again?
Okay. I mean, the FX climb has kind of evolved significantly, over the last 2 to 3 decades, right? So
Hmm.
the wholesale Dutch auction and the retail Dutch auctions were introduced sometime in 2002, and they ran up until 2015. At some point, the retail Dutch was replaced by the wholesale Dutch, just in a bid to make the FX market more liquid and give banks that ability to buy more from the central bank and then use it to offset the demand they see from end users, right? But
Okay.
after 2015, um, there was significant backload of FX to be met in the market, and the central bank decided to allow the currency sort of float then, which was why they introduced the investors and exporters window sometime around 2016. And it became somewhat a willing buyer and willing seller, even though at the end of the day it was a managed float system. So during that regime, between 2016 to 2022, we now saw them introduce a form of the retail Dutch auctions, which they call the retail SMEs, R SMEs, that's the retail special secondary market intervention sales, right, which took the form of
Mm,
the retail Dutch auction, but essentially just for machineries and for raw materials. But the same auction process was adopted for that intervention sales. So why it was eventually seized was because after this current administration came into power, they decided to make um, I mean, unify all the exchange rates and have just one single exchange rate for the entire market, right? Which is now the
okay.
NAFEM, the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange market window. So the introduction of that made the retail SMEs, which is still a Dutch auction, um, come to a halt, right? So it was done just to unify the currency and make us have a single source of FX, which is in interbank markets, and central bank from time to time comes into that market to support or to intervene. So that's the major reason why it was seized. And why they are picking it up back now, I mean, the reason is not far-fetched, right? We have
Okay.
mounting FX pressures, right? And for some reason, which we'll definitely discuss in the course of this meeting, the supply is not really adequate to match like the demand, right? So obviously, in terms of allocation, everyone will not get 100% of their allocation, and there's a possibility that a few sect of people could be getting allocations from the few supplies that are in the market, and certain sets would not be getting allocated, right? So in a bid to
Okay.
reduce that disparity, this retail Dutch auction is going to actually solve that, because all end users, what are your FX demands? What do you need from sending your valid documents, your trade document, letters of credit from EMS, whatever it may be, or invisible transactions and whatnot, send them in, and central bank sees your bids across all bids across the market and decides to allocate. So with this system, a lot more people can actually get access to FX rather than waiting for a bank to use its discretion to allocate to them from what they see in the market.
Okay, thank you for that, David. I mean, all that being said, and I like your last statement, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, would it have such a really significant impact on the FX situation that we're facing right here? And how exactly can we fix the supply issue? I mean, on a more quote unquote permanent basis.
Okay. So I think it will have an impact in the sense that a lot more people get allocated, and we could even start to see some sort of reduction in the pressure we see in the parallel market right now. Because if people cannot access from the official windows, their next bet is to go to the parallel market. But now that central bank is opening it up through the retail Dutch auctions, right, more people can get access and get allocation, so there could be some respite in terms of pressure in the parallel market. So there could be an impact there. And overall, just to allow everyone to be equally treated, there will also be an impact there where you know that, okay, I could wait for the auction and get certain allocations. So you can plan, corporates and individuals can plan based off of the knowledge that an auction is back into the system, right? And how do we fix our supply issues? So I think the lasting solution to this is to get sustainable FX flows from foreign direct investment, right? We've seen in recent time a lot of foreign direct investors pull out and exit the country due to the ease of doing business,
Mm,
FX volatility, um, and whatnot, insecurity, and the likes, right? It's not good for the nation because that's significant flow of FX leaving the country, and
true.
FDI investment actually lasts for a longer period of time compared to the shorter term counterpart, which is the foreign portfolio investors or investments, right? So foreign portfolio investors bring in money and buy your financial instruments like treasury bills and bonds, right? But mostly treasury bills. And after say like a year, when they've made the carry return that they want to make, right? They exit and whatnot. So they are short-term investments. And to be honest, we've not seen quite huge volumes coming in terms of foreign portfolio investors as well, because after COVID, they were quite buoyant given the fact that central bank was not allocating FX to them. So they've been quite
Mm.
cautious. We've seen them trickled in this year when there were special auctions in the bonds market, and even treasury bills where over 1 trillion were sold at each auctions and whatnot, right? But the flow we've seen is still nothing compared to what it was before COVID levels, right? So these has
Okay.
dampened our FX supply, right? So given that supply shortage, that's why we currently have the issues that we're having and the mounting pressures we have. So a lasting solution will be the FDIs. Once we can get them in numbers, make the country and the environment very easy to do business, make the FX somewhat stable, and solving security problems, then I mean, it's a no-brainer that foreign investors will seek to invest in such economic climbs, and the supply shortage would ramp up.
All right, interesting stuff there, David. I mean, another way that, of course, Nigeria is able to bring in its FX is through oil. Now, regarding oil production, since it's clearly linked to the dollar info that we're talking about right now, are we at a point where we should declare a state of emergency in our oil sector?
State of emergency is a tough word, right? I agree that given the huge volume of oil, crude oil theft we've seen in the Niger Delta area, right, is something we should actually look to address, because these are low-hanging fruits, like you said.
Okay.
The FX can, yes, the FX can situation can significantly be improved, right, if we are exporting enough oil, even maxing out our um OPEC production criteria or limits, right? Right now, we are currently producing about 1.6 million barrel per day, as against 1.7. And this is just an improvement. We started the year with about 1.2 million
Hmm.
barrel per day, right? So if we can actually bump up our oil production numbers, of course, it will filter into the FX supply you're talking about, right? But I don't think a state of emergency, right, in itself could be too harsh, could even end up hurting supply of or production of crude oil as well, right? So, but it definitely, the theft needs to definitely be addressed. We also need to look into the top officials, even racketeering, crude oil sales and whatnot, right? That sector really needs a lot of transparency and accountability, because that's a very low hanging fruit that the current
Hmm.
administration can look into to ramp up um FX supply and also revenue into the economy.
All right, let me take a message from WhatsApp where Tyre from Ajaz says that he hopes that the CBN entering the forex markets with the reintroduction of policy shifts our balance of payments towards a positive tilt because there is serious pressure on the Naira. Do you echo those thoughts, David?
So for a balance of payments to be tilted to the positive region, it means that our exports should significantly outweigh our imports, right? So
Right.
opening up these has no correlation with exports. If anything, it actually facilitates increase in imports, because most of the people who are be on the windows are importers who need FX to actually bring in goods and services into the country, right? So I
Okay.
wouldn't draw that correlation, the was asked in the question, but I would say that in recent time, our balance of payment has actually been in the positive region for a number of factors, right? From what's it called? The um improved diaspora remittances we've been seeing. You know that
Okay. Okay.
before now, we used to have IMTOs take a large chunk of these diaspora remittances, but because of the sort of unified exchange rate, sort of, we've seen more of that filter into or channel into the official means, right? So
Right.
I think that this introduction of retail Dutch auction will just help to aid our exports, and not necessarily bring a positive balance of of payment.
All right. Thank you for that clarity, David. And on that note, we need to draw the curtain on Business Express this morning. Thank you so much to you, David Shaibu. for joining me this morning to talk about this very, very interesting issue. It's been a pleasure having you on Business Express.
Thank you for having me again.
All right, do have yourself a great Tuesday ahead, and thank you to all our amazing listeners for being a part of the show this morning. Keep it tuned to Smooth 98.1. So much more great music to come as we journey along to 7:30, where it'll be time to take a look at the headlines on Freshly Pressed.